Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Dracut's #1 television show and its 59th episode, What's Happening Dracut. Today is Wednesday, October 25th, 2023, and we are here at our overly ostentatious studios located at 91 Mill Street in Dracut, Massachusetts. We're coming to you live, and we expect this show to be lively, moving fast and furious through the hour and a half or 90 some odd minutes that we have this show on this evening. If you'd like to join in the fun, please give us a call. You'll see the number on the screen momentarily. You can go with us live on Facebook. You can join us on our live streaming channel through the internet at DracutTV.org. And you can also get us on YouTube when the whole shebang is done, when Gordy Scott puts it up on our YouTube channel. But you can call in at any time during the show and be part of this unbelievable conversation that we're going to have during this show. And that number is 978-957-4243. You're welcome to join us at any time. I'm your host, John Zimini, and I hope to keep this agenda moving pretty quickly as we trudge through tonight's show on an October Wednesday when it was 77 degrees. So with us tonight is one of the best architects in Northern America, who is a secret to many people, but he should get, if you need anything architecturally, designs or whatever, call this guy in Dracut. He's a great guy. And that might be considered, what do you call it?
Oh, calling to action.
That might be calling you to action, but forget that. Do not call him. Do not call him.
If you're in Dracut, then you might know.
You might know him. If you're in Dracut and you know him, you're probably going to, depending on which side you're on, you're not going to use him, right? So, yeah. Anyways, that was a faux pas. Anyways, here's Dracut's best architect, Phil Thibault.
Hey, how are you?
How you doing?
Very well, thank you. You know, there's this episode and myself have something in common. We're both at 59.
Whoa!
Whoa! But that's soon to change for me. So.
Well, the best is yet to come.
And then we'll once again be the same episode.
Right.
Well, I don't imagine that Lorraine watches us as much
No,
as she watches the Bruins.
I can rest assured that she is not watching this at the moment. But she is very happy with the Bruins.
They're 6-0?
6-0, starting off 6-0.
6-0, 60.
6-0.
Wow, I got to go play the lottery on this one.
Yes, yes. And interestingly enough, today I got a picture sent to me from St. John's, not from St. John's, but from one of my players, that Marchand was on our campus today because he has a son who plays freshman football.
That's a Bruins player, correct?
Yeah, he's a Bruins player.
Yeah, captain.
So he's the captain of the Bruins, and he was on campus today watching his son. I didn't even realize he had a son that old. 15 years old, right?
Wow.
So everybody, please pay attention to what's going on here, because we have with us the Cub reporter of Dracut, Massachusetts, who is so overly extended in everything that he's doing. He's so frazzled. He needs something to calm him down. He needs gummies or something.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Well, listen, Mr. and Mrs. Silvio, I am not pushing him to go on gummies.
The only gummies I'm doing are Haribo, John.
Here we go. It's Richard Silvio.
Hey guys, we have a comment. Somebody said, will I be the next athletic director of Dracut? I can tell you, great idea, vote for me. We will have a bowling team, finally. It's about time, John. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. What's going on in your world?
Oh gosh, so much, John, so much. I can't wait. I believe, Gordy, you're talking about bullying later on, right?
Yes, correct.
Well, as a close friend of ours said, never mind, I'm not going to quote her, she'll kill me. But I have a pretty interesting story about that, something that happened yesterday. Hopefully the audience will get a little laugh. I will be talking about the crisis in Israel, and I have the answer to the whole thing. If both sides just converted to Christianity, we wouldn't have an issue. The door's open, write my name on the line so I can redeem the points, and we'll be good to go.
Your stalker is saying hello to you tonight.
I see. Hi, Rex. How are you?
Oh my goodness, you have a stalker.
Well, what can I say, John?
But
I
it's
have
a
that
good-
effect on people.
It's a good stalker.
It's a good
though.
stalker. We love Rex.
Yeah. Well, welcome aboard, Rex. Good to see you out there. And we also have online, waiting in the background to give his weather report. Sean Kelly is out there waiting. So I'm anxiously awaiting your report of what's going to happen with this weather in the next few days. But before we get to that, let's get to our Teflon Don of DATV. The guy who is, flying way below the radar here around town in so many ways. But after tonight, he may be back on top. And here he is, Gordy Scott.
Hey everybody, how's it
Mr. Clean.
going? Yeah.
How's it going, Gordy?
Good. The fall season's almost wrapping up here, so we had a tough game against North Andover. We gave them. They're probably going to be one of the best teams in the state. We were down by 3 points only in the fourth quarter, and we ended up losing by 10. But it was a close game. So very impressed. The boys are doing well. I think they're going to. They'll be in good shape for the season. I think they're gonna, hopefully they'll hit 10 games. They'll make the playoffs this year.
Do they have enough players?
Oh yeah, we have plenty of on the basketball team. There's no loss of players.
You just go down any street in Dracut and just pull a couple people off the street.
Yeah, no. The boys are all very into basketball. They love the game. I'm proud of them. They've done well over the summer and the fall, and they weren't good last year. There were only one win last year, but I think this year, they may make the playoffs this year. Nothing to do with my brilliant
nothing to do
coaching.
with you. No. They love the current head coach too.
Yeah, he's a good guy, and that's what you really have to do. Talking about sports and Dracut, you're really the coach. It's the cornerstone of any good program is the coaching. So if the coaches show interest in the younger players are going to show interest in the program.
How long has that coach been here?
This will be his second year. So he was hired late. We had an awesome coach, Brian Myers. For 3 years, he took the team one game away from state finals. He's now at the Voc.
Yeah.
And I think his season will be looking good too. So he's an awesome guy, great coach.
Shouldn't we be proud of what the Voc is doing also?
We should.
Shouldn't we be
Yeah,
embracing the
absolutely.
fact that we have a great vocational school
Yes, I
not
don't
far from
disagree.
here? And
I
many
just
of our
say I
students go there?
miss him because I see, if they're
Right.
the Voc, I don't see him as much as.
But there is a stigma in town now
Right, correct.
that's been created by the political forces in town that are trying to say that, we don't want you to go to the
I
Voc.
think that's
Shouldn't we be
I think that's-
embracing that?
Yeah, I think that's a true statement. Even in the sports too, if you didn't notice, Dracut hasn't played the Voc at all in any sports.
Nothing.
So there is a backstory
I can
to
understand that because I don't know how the competition would be, how much the rivalry may create issues. But when I was a kid, I'm sure you all, I don't know how many of you, if any of you, grew up in the inner city, but I grew up in Chelsea. That's the basis of inner city. We want to talk about a 1.8 square miles with 50,000 people in it. You knew people, and you had to get along. But there were enormous rivalries within playgrounds or parks.
Oh yeah, I would think from one street to the next. You could
Yeah, there were
quite a rivalry.
neighborhoods, the Irish neighborhood, the Jewish neighborhood, the Polish neighborhood. We all got along, but the rivalry of competition in education and sporting events and just regular social events was enormous. I mean, I grew up in a neighborhood where it was called Polonia Park neighborhood, and then there was Quigley Park neighborhood, and then there's Merritt Park neighborhood. And we would go visit those parks as a group and play them in checkers and basketball
Whatever, yeah.
and volleyball and all those different issues,
What a
right?
gangster,
Through the
wow.
summer.
But the last time we had a basketball game against the Voc, it was in 2017. My son was on the team. I did a drive for Coaches for Cancer. We made $4,000. The gym hasn't been as crowded since,
Wow.
before or since. Well, it was brand new gym back
And that
then.
was against the Volk.
Yes, and it was packed, jam-packed. You can
How was the competition? Was it
awesome.
close?
It was like a 1-point game.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah,
That
You know
was-
what-
it was awesome.
You know what we need to do? Let's close down Lakeview Avenue and have Lowell BMX bicycle kids against the Dracut ones and see who can outdo them in wheelies.
Well, yeah, they'll be in the middle of the streets. That's what you want to do?
Absolutely. Let's draw out the crowds. That'll get them.
I think that, you just put new meaning to those bike lanes. Right?
Put some use to them. Yeah, no
so,
kidding.
let's talk a little bit about weather. We got to go to the weather. Let's go
I
with
heard
Sean.
warm weather's coming.
More
I heard.
warm weather in October. Sean, take it away.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me on tonight. Here's the forecast for tonight. Temps are going to drop into the low 50s tonight with partly cloudy conditions. Winds won't be that bad at 5 to 10 miles an hour. Then as we head into the day on Thursday, 75 degrees for a high temp, running above average. Our average for this time of year is about 60 degrees for a high temp. So 75, really nice day with partly sunny conditions. Then as we head into Thursday night, temps are going to drop back down into the mid-50s with partly cloudy conditions. As we head into the day on Friday, a very nice day overall. Again, 75 degrees, partly sunny and warm. Then as we head into Friday night, temps are going to be dropping to near 60 degrees, which is our daily average for this time of year. And that's for an overnight low temp. So it's going to be very warm Friday night. And here's a look at your exclusive 8-day forecast. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Very nice. Temps near 80 degrees as we head into Saturday. Very nice day. Rain possible, whereas we are going to be tracking a cold front for Sunday. That's going to drop us back down into the 50s for next week. And that's the forecast for now. Back to you guys in the studio.
Hey, we're back, folks. We're back. So, what are some of the coming events coming up, Richard? You have something that you're organizing?
Yes, so I have one event I'm organizing, then one event I am attending. Nate, if you can put up the flyer I have for the Israel March.
Here we go.
Thank you. This coming Sunday, the 29th, in downtown Lowell, we are meeting the public. We're all invited to come to the AOT Garage, which is the one directly across from the high school. We're gathering at 3 p.m. That's the stepping off point. We will be escorted by the Lowell Police in a parade through the streets of downtown Lowell, where we will gather at Lowell City Hall to gather in prayer in memorial for those who have lost their lives fighting for the defense of Israel.
Who is, you have any main speakers?
Speakers, I know of people coming. I don't know if they're necessarily going to speak. Rita Mercier will be there. She is also bringing former Mayor Bud Caulfield. He will be there as well. We are also trying to get a priest and a rabbi, as well as some other figures.
Very good, very good. Well, we look forward to that. We also have a couple of events coming up here in Dracut, right, Phil?
Yeah, so town meeting will be November 13th, which is the second Monday of the month. It starts, I believe, around, well, get there by 6 o'clock and you can talk to people and schmooze and see what's going on. They're actually going to be talking about the MBTA multifamily zone prior to town meeting. It's not on any article at town meeting, but they're trying to start to gather some information on that. So at the high school auditorium, or the Performing Arts Center as it's called now, November 13th.
Now, last weekend was the craft fair. Has anybody here gone to the craft fair in the past? Or?
I walked through it. They had a very good turnout. In particular, I was talking with somebody who did wood carving, and he had wood bowls and a knife set and stuff like that. Beautiful, beautiful work.
Yeah.
So most of the I would say all the crafts there were very well done. And it lined pretty much all of the corridors on the first floor at the Richardson School, and then the gymnasium in the back was completely full. So I mean, a lot of people, very well attended.
So the craft fair, and what does that craft fair actually benefit?
That benefits the Scholarship Foundation. So the Dracut Scholarship Foundation. It's one of their main events, and then of course they'll have the telethon in March, I believe.
So we wanted to thank Sean Kelly from Mill City Weather for presenting the weather forecast for the next few days. It's amazing what the weather is like. What do you think, Gordy? What's going on? Is this all
You
part of
forgot to
climate
mention
change?
you forgot to mention one thing.
What did I forget?
A huge thing happening in Dracut next week.
What?
On Tuesday night, the trick-or-treaters are going to be
Oh,
out
that's
from
right.
6 to 8.
That's right.
And if they come to my neighborhood, John, unlike your neighborhood,
Yep.
we give out the big, full-size candy bars. My wife's going to kill me when I get home for saying that. But so we started doing that probably like 10 years ago. We started the full-size candy bars. And then one
What,
of
do
my
you get
neighbors
4
said,
people?
hey, we got to keep up with those guys. We got to get the full-size. Then the next neighbor said, hey, we got to keep up with those guys. So now I think the whole neighborhood gives out full-size candy bars. So guess what? I just got 18 buses to come to my
I have 3 different costumes lined up, waiting to switch out in the car to go back to Gordy's house.
So
What kind of candy bars?
Oh, we've got 3 Musketeers, Milky Way, M&Ms,
Save me a Hershey and almonds.
Snickers, so
Butterfingers?
Reese's Pieces.
Did you ever try the M&M's stuffed with brownies?
I have
Yes,
not tried
yes,
that.
Oh
I have.
my God, they're addictive.
Those are well, any
Good.
They're
M&M.
addictive.
Well, John,
But
did you know
you can't forget Halloween.
M&Ms were invented during the Second World War? Did you know that?
No, I didn't know
Because
that.
so they needed a way, the government did, to provide chocolate to soldiers without it melting.
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
They don't melt in your hands.
They don't melt in
melt
your
in your
hands.
mouth, not in your
right.
hand. Is that
100%.
advertising? No, no, it's
That
not.
is
And
not
I
a
don't-
call to action. Do not go out and buy M&Ms.
do
And I
not
don't know
go
if
out
you
and buy
noticed,
any.
though, on Sean's weather forecast, it did say rain on
Showers.
Tuesday.
It did say showers, so
So, and 50 degrees, so it's probably not going to be too fun for the kids. But
it's not snow, so
It's not snow,
there's,
right.
there's a benefit there.
Well, John,
Well-
we also have one more event coming up.
Go ahead.
I emailed you, Gordy. I don't know if you can pull it up quickly. On Saturday, November 4th, in Boston, all men are invited to go to 1055 Commonwealth Avenue at 8:30 in the morning for a men's march to end abortion. So I will be there with a few people from the shrine, and everybody is more than welcome to come by and join us.
On all men's. Okay.
So at 10:30, we're going to be meeting with mothers and children in a separate area in Boston, then we all join up together.
Good.
So.
Someone's asking where you buy the full size.
Where do you buy a full size?
well, we go to I don't know if I can mention the store name.
You could
No,
mention
you
this.
can't. You can mention the
you can
store.
tell
but you
people
don't-
not to go
yeah,
there.
You can mention it.
So we go to BJ's.
Yeah, it would make
BJ's.
sense.
Oh, yeah.
Or Costco's, I'm sure, would have
Costco,
it.
has it,
They
yeah.
sell the big boxes. I think there's 30 in a box.
Yeah.
Again, I'd rather you go to a local store and buy the.
But yeah.
You used to be able to go to like Notinis, remember?
Well,
that?
with Bidenomics, I didn't want to pay the $1.50 a candy bar. I'd rather pay the 50 cents a candy.
There you go. There you go. With Bidenomics, it's true. It's amazing that you haven't cut back on that.
Right.
Because
Well,
of
it's kind of a thing that that's how we give back to the community. We get a lot. We have to buy over 200 candy bars.
Wow.
Wow.
So we get usually 230. My wife keeps track. She writes that on the calendar every year, and we keep our calendars and go back and see how many. So I think we've had between the last 3 years, between 208 was the low. It was raining that year, and then up to like 243. So that's how
Wow.
many kids we get. in
I'm
our
lucky if I
neighborhood.
get one kid come to my house.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what the average American spends on candy for Halloween, according to Channel 25?
What?
What do you think?
Oh, I would think
Lower than I thought.
$75.
What do you think?
I don't know, 50?
We spend 200. So
Well, you're the outlier. The average is $37,
37 bucks.
which is a few
I'm
dollars
going
more
to tell
than
you
last
right
year.
now, this cheap bastard. I mean, this cheap guy doesn't spend $37 on candy.
I know. What does the Dollar Tree have right
In
now
fact,
for
I
candy?
have candy left over from last year. I'm going to be giving
I had a neighbor that would give out candy canes.
Oh,
Oh,
God.
no.
There you go.
And they were from the previous
my
year.
brother's so cheap, he goes to the parade, saves the candy, and then gives the candy.
There you go.
Wow. You know what my grandmother used to give
Got
out?
me beat.
God rest her soul. My grandmother used to give out the popcorn balls.
Oh, yeah.
She
yeah.
wasn't a very popular street, a
no,
very popular
no,
house
no,
in the street.
So anyways, folks,
Oh, God.
have a safe weekend of trick-or-treating or whatever when it is Tuesday.
Sean says
Next
it's
Tuesday.
tending more dry now.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
It's going to be more dry, so you better cough it up.
Yep.
Cough it up. All right, so we're going to jump right into our first subject of the night, and Gordy Scott is going to be the lead on this one tonight on segment 1. So Gordy Scott, take it away on our school issues of the day.
Yeah, so I watched the the school committee meeting, and during the public portion of that, one thing came out, and I was very surprised. I think that you posted something on our Facebook page about it. We've heard rumblings
Yes.
of something with gun or something in school.
Right.
I don't know if we had the full details, so I don't think we posted.
We didn't have
follow-
all the details, but we did post something.
Right.
about
So
it.
then, when I watched the school committee meeting, I'm going to play the video of Samantha speaking about what happened to her daughter. I was just appalled that the school hadn't taken any action as of yet, because obviously she had spoken at the school committee meeting to ask them to take action. So I guess to preface it, that's how I'll preface this, and I want to show the video from the school committee meeting when she spoke in front of the superintendent.
All right, so we're going to get that video right now.
Good evening, Samantha Stillian, Dracut, Mass. I moved to Dracut in 2010 and was so excited to have my children attend the same hometown schools their father did. He is a graduate of DHS class of 2000. From the time my son enrolled in kindergarten in 2014 until this past June when he left the Richardson, we've had continuous issues with bullying. So much so that I am counting the minutes until I do not have a child at the middle school any longer. I currently have an 8th grader. As we're taking an alternate route for high school. My son's thriving in a different high school out of Dracut schools. I'm here tonight to speak on events that I find concerning at the Richardson Middle School. My daughter's been targeted on several occasions by the same student and has been told that she should commit suicide. I don't think I have to say out loud how disgusting that is or how detrimental to her mental health that these comments are. According to Mr. Stone's letter to the community, threats of violence, whether verbal, written, or via images on social media, are unacceptable. Well, my daughter needs a pep talk in the morning and encouragement to even walk out the house to go to school. Not because she is afraid of this student, but because she is sick and tired of being bullied and harassed. I apologize, but I'm calling you and the committee out on this. My daughter is still in class with this student that has threatened to put a gun to her head and has blatantly said that he will do anything he can to lie and get away with his actions. Not only is this student still in class with her, he continues to sit at her lunch table when she feels comfortable enough to even attend lunch, and speaks negatively to the students around her, while not even speaking to her. Now, if this student's presence in her vicinity isn't appalling enough, he has found her social media accounts, which are closely monitored by her father and I. What happened to efforts to disrupt the learning of students will not be tolerated. When illegal activity occurs that impacts the Dracut Public Schools, we will work to pursue changes and hold individuals accountable when they undermine the health, safety, and education of our community. Where's the evidence of these efforts? Aside from this, I have emailed Principal McGinnis and CC'd Assistant Principal Robert Malloy and adjustment counselors about this on Tuesday, October 17th, that the student had been in contact with my daughter and have yet to hear from any of them as of today. Neither is my daughter, despite her seeking assistance when the student continuously tried to trip her in the hallways during the transition of classes all last week. As of May 2023, researchers found that between 2008 and 2018, the suicide rates among 13 and 14-year-olds nationwide more than doubled, roughly 2 deaths per 100,000 teens in 2008 to 5 per 100,000 a decade later. This is incredibly disturbing, and we currently have a multitude of reports that a student or students are telling students to commit suicide, or we have a student or students threatening to use weapons against students. What are we doing about it? Our country as a whole is facing a mental health crisis where our teenagers are turning to harming themselves because they don't know how to handle their emotions on their own. And now in our hometown, we have students encouraging or outright telling their peers to commit suicide? What? Whether the student or students in question understand the weight of their words, they understand enough to know that it's wrong and have expressed that they will pursue any avenue to avoid the consequences of their actions. Why aren't you doing anything about it? I implore you to take these threats seriously, and as they are, an intent to harm or cause harm to another student. Do better for our kids. Keep them safe. Follow your words. Quote, we take all threats extremely serious and uphold the policy of how the district has no tolerance for such behavior and how you will work to hold these individuals accountable when they undermine the health, safety, and education of our community. I expect you and this committee to hold the safety of your students and your staff in high regard as you investigate these recent events. I also expect to be contacted to discuss this further. Thank you.
Okay, Sarah Powell.
That was quite interesting
Ouch.
statement, and that was an ouch statement. But you notice how the members of the school committee, not all, but the majority of the members of the school committee are not attentive to it. They don't even, it's like, let's just let this go by. Any kind, I mean, there must have been 6 people that spoke the other night at the school committee meeting, and you could see they're just like, this is a requirement that we have to do, and they don't even pay attention to it.
Well, and then I followed up with Samantha, and I asked her, well, these are pretty serious charges, right? So I asked her, were the police actually notified? Because I think they have a school resource officer there. Was he contacted? Because if you say you're going to hold a gun to someone's head, you should at least question the person. Did you say this?
I think that's extremely serious.
Right. So she did say they reached out, and if you can put my screen back up here again, they got a joint statement from the superintendent and police chief Bartlett.
So what did it say?
So they basically just said, there was a threat of another student with gun violence. They received the report. They coordinated with the principal, McGinnis, and the resource officer. They said they take these threats seriously, which I question that, because if this parent felt strong enough to get up during community input and say, I expect you to respond,
Yeah.
and they didn't respond to her after this happened, I don't think they took it too seriously.
I don't know if, with all due respect to the police department, I don't know if that's, you can bring it back to us. He could still read it, but you can understand that. I don't know how serious that is. Did they talk to the student? I think they did talk to the student.
I believe they did last Friday.
Right.
My understanding is, following up with the parent, and there's been no contact this week.
Right.
And there's been no more bullying, so thank God. And if you're watching, Samantha, and if your daughter's watching, we're with you. Our hearts are with you. Our prayers go out to you. Hopefully this is done and nothing else happens. But I'm glad you spoke up, because I don't think if she didn't speak up, we wouldn't have known about this, right? And this would have got, with a lot of other things, got swept under the rug. This is the thing. This is where the school committee and the board of selectmen, a lot of stuff like this happens, and it gets swept, and they say, oh, we're transparent. Well, when stuff comes up like this, I think people should know about it.
Right. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And this kid, hopefully this kid had learned his lesson, but if he didn't, if this stuff doesn't become public, now he's going to be, I'm sure and I don't know who the person is, I don't know who the child is that was bullying, but hopefully his parents have spoken to him, and this is not going to happen again, it's not going to go any farther.
So I know this was discussed, but I think it was kind of fluffed over a little bit. What school was it in?
It was at the middle school.
The middle school, which is the Richardson Middle School.
Yep.
And there is a resource officer in that school?
Yes.
Or is it the same one for the whole complex?
I think
It's
the
Officer
whole complex.
Cotnor.
Cotnor covers the whole,
Yep.
John Cotnor, he covers the whole complex. Now, Phil, I'm just curious what you think what the word extremely serious means.
I mean, to be honest, this is kind of the first I've really heard about it also, and I am really just dumbfounded by the whole thing. I mean, the safety of your child, and to the point of life safety, it's just unimaginable.
And if this parent, my point is, if she didn't speak, no one would have known.
Right. Right.
Right? No one would have known about this.
Well, this is what they do. They don't put stuff out like that. If there's an incident at most schools, it is addressed in some sort of an email to
right.
the body.
There was some gun violence.
There was a alleged threat, and the threat has
been under investigation. The police are involved. They should send. I don't know if that went out.
So what
to
happened?
All of the school.
Yeah, but what happened to the student that was?
I don't know.
Making the threats.
Yeah, and I don't know.
You do have some information as to what he.
My understanding is he was in the office, and that's all I know. And that the girl that got bullied and the bully were not together this past week.
So they got some kind of a plan together, I'm sure.
Yes.
And but the kid didn't get a suspension.
Not that I know. I don't know. Everything's swept under the rug.
So let's turn to our youngster who's
right.
fresh out of high school by a couple of years, and now he's in college.
I will tell you, John, they take nothing seriously. when it comes to bullying in the Dracut School Department.
Right.
And I think I can speak to that almost more than anybody else.
Yeah.
Maybe let's pull one instance out in particular. When people threatened to blow up my house and the police actually came to my home. Nothing from the Dracut Public Schools.
Did you know who made the threats to you?
They were online threats, yeah.
So you were the subject of bullying while you were at Dracut High School, which is only a short couple of years ago.
I graduated last year.
Right. So last year, you're
2022.
So you're in your first year of
No, second semester,
year,
yeah.
second year of college. So when you were there, throughout your career at the high school, you were bullied. Did it affect you? How did it affect you?
Oh my gosh.
Tell us.
It completely changed my life. For the last 2 years of high school, students and faculty, nobody wanted anything to do with me because I appeared on this TV show, and they thought that we were attacking teachers. You probably remember that. Because of my outspoken political beliefs, I would have teachers pull me out of separate classrooms that had nothing to do with their class or their subject to scream at me in the hallway and get caught by the vice principal and then have nothing happen to that person. And all of those teachers are still employed in the Dracut Public Schools. They do not take bullying seriously.
Yeah. Now you held back during that whole time too.
I definitely held back because I didn't receive any assistance at all from administration. I figured the best thing I could do was try to keep my head under the radar, for the last year or so, which didn't help the situation at all. I have extreme anxiety. I suffer from depression now because of what I went through in high school. 2 or 3 years of everybody telling you that you don't even belong to breathe. You don't even belong to breathe, let alone be at this school.
Kind of like a Jew.
Kind of like a Jew, John.
People don't, yeah.
Kind of like a Jew.
Yeah. So when you experienced all this, you went through the protocol, you talked to your principal or whomever.
Well, you start with the teacher. You talk with the teacher, nothing changes. You go to, the next person up in administration, nothing changes.
Go to guidance at all? Or?
There was a guidance counselor who I was comfortable with. Yeah, nothing changed. Went to the vice principals, nothing happened. I had one vice principal tell me, because most of the bullying was of a political nature, right? Where I had this person admit to me behind closed doors that they know that if the shoe was on the other foot, and I was a minority student, racially speaking, making complaints, something would have happened that same day. But because I happen to be white, because I happen to be a Republican, that's why nothing changed. I had a vice principal admit that to me behind closed doors.
Let's fast forward to today.
Yes, John, so...
You're in college now.
I look back, this I laugh at a little bit because you hear things like this on the news, but you never expect it to happen to you. So I'm not going to get into what happened over at St. Francis.
Right. No names, yeah.
But basically, I went to a class yesterday. It's 8 students, very small, very liberal classroom, but the teacher does a good job with, allowing the floor to be open for discussion for all different beliefs. And I walk in, very casual, and they say, well, how are you doing today, Richard? And I said, well, I don't want to get into it, but, my church has been on the news. I'm having a bit of a rough day. I don't want to talk about it, but thank you for asking. And they said, oh, okay, well, welcome, come sit down. And that's all I had said. I didn't say what happened. I didn't even say the name of the church. I didn't give any sort of opinion. All I said is...
What the denomination of the church was?
Didn't even say the denomination, okay? Well, somebody in the class took up their computer while we were, discussing the subject of the day and Googled Dracut Church incident. And it just so happens this student identifies as he, they, and they're a female. So once they read what happened, they assumed that I, agreed with certain statements without even asking me, right? Got up in the middle of class, interrupted the teacher, looked at me and said, I just want you to know that I support any type of protest that happens there, and that church ought to be ashamed of themselves. Stops the lecture, dead in its tracks, everyone goes quiet, and I look at this person, and I said, well, all right, it's free country, for now anyways. You can feel that way. And then she looks at me and goes, to be honest, I don't even feel safe being in the same classroom as you. I think my safety, is jeopardized. And I looked at her and I said, well, again, it's kind of on you. Sorry you feel that way. I don't know what you want me to tell you. So they storm out, right? 10 minutes later, they come back, bawling their eyes out in hysterics, crying.
Over what was the statement you made again, just so that the folks can hear it?
I said, my church is going through some stuff. They were on the news, but I don't want to talk about it. But thank you for asking.
Yeah, that's all you said.
All I said, swear to God. So she comes back 10 minutes later bawling and says, you are so ignorant. This is no longer a safe space for me, so I'm leaving. And I looked at her and I said, well, all right, I hope you have a nice day.
Talk about being melodramatic, but
And of course the teacher thanked her, for having the courage to speak up about how she felt.
And how did the teacher treat you? How did you feel the teacher was teaching you?
I felt the teacher was, I have respect for this teacher. I think they were a little more neutral than they should have been. Especially where I had quite literally did nothing wrong in this situation. I didn't name call. I didn't even state an opinion and was called ignorant and was attacked by this other student. And I vocalized that and I said, I was raised that the first thing you need to do when having a conversation with somebody else is have respect for that person. And the teacher respectfully disagreed and said, no, when you're having a conversation, you do not necessarily have to have respect for that person. And I brought it up to other counselors who agreed with that statement. So I'm flabbergasted.
Yeah. So you had follow-up from the counselor and all that stuff?
Had a follow-up with the dean of students. I know her from previous things we've worked on together. Lovely woman. And she kind of walked me through the whole process, and I think we'll be all set to get back to class.
Being in the indoctrination, the higher education indoctrination, because it does start at the lower level.
It starts in elementary, John. It really does.
It's
it
the
really does.
indoctrination and the feeling thing starts at a very young age, and it gets more intense as the higher up you go, right? So now you are a subject of that whole thing at that school, and you will be looked at differently.
Well, and I think a good point, John, too, is somebody in the comments wrote, stop calling them she. That's not okay. Somebody in our comments said that. And I love you, Angel. I respect you very much. You're a big fan of ours. Nothing against you. But my mindset is this, right? My rights do not end where yours begin.
Right.
You have a right to call yourself by whatever you'd like to, but I have a right to not abide by that.
Right.
And there's nothing anybody can say about that.
But she also is recognizing herself as a she.
No, she calls herself he, they.
He, they. Okay. See, this is where I get confused. Yeah. I get so confused over this stuff. Gordy, where is the line on this stuff? Where is the line?
There's definitely a line, and you have to be on the liberal side of the line
So
to be right, and that's the issue we have in this country.
as you drive around Massachusetts, you see these lawn signs that say, hate does not live here, right?
They tend to be very hateful people.
They're not, and hate and intolerance does not live here, right? But that hate and intolerance is only if you agree with them.
Certainly.
Right.
If you push back on their thoughts and their mantra, then you are part of the problem, right? Instead of sitting down and hashing things out and trying to talk things through, it's either my way or the highway. And that's the sad part about it, isn't it, Phil?
Yeah, right. So they're intolerant of intolerance.
Right.
There's some irony into that.
Isn't there?
Angel made another comment here that they're told often that we can't discuss individual student matters with school committee members. Huh? What do you mean you can't?
That's why your school committee's there.
I can't
For school
talk about
issues.
my child to a school committee member? I can't talk about what my child is going through as a result of another child in the school?
Well,
with
you
a school
remember when the
committee
guy was
member?
arrested when his daughter was sexually assaulted in the bathroom,
Right.
right? And he was arrested for getting angry at the school committee.
I
was
think
a terrorist.
It's very telling that, okay, I can understand you're not supposed to talk. You shouldn't necessarily be talking in public to your school committee in the school committee talking back to you in public about a particular.
Oh, that's you're talking about during.
To be honest, any point that it has to be made public, but it's a sad statement that it needs to be made public by a parent to force something to be acted upon.
See, I don't get that whole stuff about your community input, and then the school committee or the board of selectmen or whatever board you're sitting with can't have a discussion with another citizen about why they're doing what they're doing. I don't get that.
Angel's on.
Angel. Hello, Angel. You're on the phone. Hey. How are you, Angel?
Hey, guys. So what my lovely friends on the school committee tell me is that they are not to discuss individual student matters because they are charged with policy, not the day-to-day procedures and life of the student.
Well, Angel, if they are charged with creating policy for the schools, how can they create policy without knowing what the issue is that you need to have a policy for?
I agree with you. They can listen to my concerns about things that my children experience, but they are not to discuss my individual child's acts. It needs to be generalized as a policy matter.
Yeah, so I would compare that to essentially like an executive session. So you're not supposed to talk about things openly in executive session unless the person who is the executive session is about says, I want this discussed in public. Then it's open.
But if Angel brings a subject to a school committee member at a school committee meeting, similar to Stillian, she did.
Sure.
She relayed a personal information and a personal thing publicly. She opened the door to that.
She made that choice.
You can't say, oh, you can't talk about your child. I'm asking you to talk about my child. Right, Angel? I mean...
And they write policy about bullying, so she's bringing it to light that the policy that they wrote isn't being followed by the administration because she's telling you that it's not being followed.
Exactly.
Again,
she's not individually discussing that child. She's discussing how the policy and its implementation is or is not affecting her child and her child's peers.
That's a shield they're hiding behind, is basically.
Well, let me ask you a
the buck.
question, Angel. When you go to vote for a person for any particular office, what are you voting for them for? Did I explain that right? What reason would you vote for somebody? Wouldn't you vote for somebody who's going to they're your voice on that board?
You want
Correct,
somebody,
Angel?
you
Are
want
you there?
somebody who advocates for you.
Yeah.
Are you there, Angel?
Yes, I am.
They're there to
I was
advocate.
reading Sam's comment
Okay.
that appeared as I was listening to you.
They're advocating for you. They're advocating for you as the member of the community who elected those people, whether or not you vote for them, right? So this is where I get really upset about it. They don't even want to talk to you. They won't bring something, although I think that might be changing. There's a couple of members on the board that would bring it forward.
Who else are you supposed to bring it to? Because if you bring it to the superintendent, he doesn't want to hear you.
It gets swept.
He doesn't want to hear you.
Right.
So you got to take it to the school committee. Can you please check? Like if I have a hole in my road, right, and I get a flat tire every time I go over the hole, who am I supposed to talk to?
Right. Exactly.
I can say I called the DPW and they did nothing. I called DPW again, they did nothing.
So who do you call?
Selectmen, can you please help me with this? Because the hole in the road, I called DPW and I'm getting nowhere.
And if
so I
that
got to call my selectmen.
If that selectman did not publicly go during a meeting and say that he or she had this constituent call me,
Right.
that constituent should be out the next time holding a sign for opposition.
Right.
Because It's just ridiculous.
Right.
That's what you're elected to do. When I was elected to the Board of Selectmen, if someone came to me with an issue, whether it be a pothole or a curb cut or a stop sign,
Right?
a stop sign,
We see
placing
those
a
all the
stop
time.
sign.
Yeah.
You can't say to the selectman, or the manager can't say to the selectman, and I've heard this, by the way, oh, that's micromanaging. No, that's not micromanaging. I'm putting a request in for you to have the police department and DPW install a stop sign. That's not micromanaging. That's called
They
constituent
have the right to
service.
come back, look,
Advocating.
we did a study,
Advocating.
we don't really think there's a stop sign, and here's why.
Right.
And then you can say, okay, well, that makes sense.
If they
Right.
make sense, but
Right.
saying, well, I can't discuss it, that's
right.
not making any
Right,
sense.
right.
That's not going to make any sense. I mean, Samantha Nicole, she says, I quoted the policy in Superintendent Stone's letter to the community of
Yeah,
Richardson
that's
School.
Samantha Stillian.
Yeah, okay. So Samantha, you made that comment, and obviously,
Now she got action, though.
She
now,
got action.
after she spoke up at community input,
but what's the
they
action?
finally got action.
But
well,
what's-
at least the bully is not
for
contact
today.
right for today.
For today. But
I hope they continue to monitor the situation, make sure it doesn't continue.
I'm not equating this to the same situation, but you have a situation that if you sweep these kinds of things to the side and quietly try to resolve them, they boil up at some point and you have a Columbine on your hand.
Right.
Today, it's a
All right,
fake.
guys.
Pardon me?
I gotta go.
All right.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
All right, thanks for calling in, Angel.
Have a great night.
My one answer
Yes.
is this is why I fight so hard with the CPAC.
We'll keep fighting.
Keep fighting, Angel. We may not always agree, but I will honor your right to do it.
Yep.
And I'll be
All right,
there.
bye, guys.
And I'll be beside you,
Thank you.
The problem is people like Angel and Richard and unfortunately,
I
Samantha
want to
is
keep in
going to
touch.
get labeled.
I know,
You're nothing
but
a
I want to
troublemaker.
keep in touch with her and make sure that
Yes.
3 weeks from now or a month, couple months from
Why
now.
do you think in political circus? There's a real Freudian slip.
Yeah, that's
But why do you think in political circles we are persona non grata? Why?
Because we stand up against the establishment.
Oh, and we stand up for truth.
Right.
Well, John, why do you think the teachers hated me so badly when I exposed the CRT I was learning at Dracut High School right here in the show?
And it's still happening.
Absolutely, even worse.
Yeah,
even
it's
worse.
still happening. Kevin Tully says that Stone and the board sandbag everything
Yep,
till
they
it's a major issue,
Yep.
or a voting bullet, a voting ballot, for election. Right. You're right. You're right, Kevin. You're absolutely right. But that's not only on the school committee. It's the same way on the Board
Everywhere.
of Selectmen.
And
You
Samantha if you're still watching us, I hope that you keep in touch with us if something more additional happens after this has happened. Please reach out to us because we're going to expose it.
Right. So we went over the one issue, but there's other issues. What's going on with the Paula Chaucy issue? Anything?
Yeah, we
that you
broke
know?
that. We broke that. That would have been another thing that just got swept under the rug, and we broke it on the page that Paula submitted her resignation on. We broke it. I heard it was Friday, and then we broke the news on Sunday. And
I heard it Friday, late Friday, because that's when most stuff gets thrown out there. And then I heard it again early Sunday morning from another source. And then I decided to post something about it. And I got it on, because I was busy with other family stuff, I got it on about 1 o'clock on our What's Happening Dracut Facebook page. By the way, if you're watching and you're new to the show, please go to Facebook right now, go to our Facebook page, What's Happening Dracut, and like and follow our page. Because our numbers are going through the roof over the last 6 months. We're now over 3,300 and going up. And we don't use any robot clickers.
We couldn't afford to buy the box.
We don't have any robot clickers that we, telling people to
Oh, and John, as a reminder, Angel pointed this out. There's a listening session on Friday
yes,
with Rebecca and I believe Renee.
Renee Young.
Yeah,
yes.
over at the Lakeview Dunkin' Donuts.
No, I thought it was Top Donut.
Is it Top Donut?
It's top donuts. Yeah, and we also, by the way, if you have something you want to promote as far as local events and things of that nature, send it over to us through our Facebook page messaging, and we'll get it up there. I mean, we'll get something on our our 33 approaching 3,400 people will be able to see it real
But John,
quick.
back to the
Yep.
Paula Chauncey thing. When we posted it, isn't it kind of weird for Superintendent Stone to release a letter on a Sunday?
Yeah, 2 hours
Afternoon?
later.
2 hours later, that publicly publicly addresses the Paula Chauncey resignation and the hiring of a new athletic director, Tom DiGeronimo.
Talk about
On a Sunday. I didn't think they worked on Sundays.
That goes for all of us. I mean, that is rewarding when you see a political entity that's responding to something that you post. They don't want to respond to you directly, but they do act on things that they watch. They say they don't. They don't want to admit they do, but they do, and it's amazing the reaction that we get from them. So we thank you. And I did reach out to Paula Chauncey, to Manley, as well as the superintendent of schools, and asked them if they'd like to make a statement. And of course, the only response I got back, I didn't expect to get any response, but I wanted to make sure that I got something from, I invited them to give me a comment. And the only response I got was a 4-line email from Superintendent Stone saying that it was a personnel matter and that, he's going to rely on the statement, the statement that he made, which leads to what's really behind this. What really is behind why Paula left, right? So you leave it open to speculation.
Wait, John.
Whether or not it's true, you leave it open to speculation.
So let me get this right. It was a personnel matter, but Stephen Stone still released a statement, right, saying that she'd be leaving. Funny, because you didn't see that with Bethany Lovelace.
No, you didn't.
Because remember, the town manager saying it's a personnel matter, but then there was no statement released that they were leaving.
Yeah, they just
Interesting.
totally ignored you.
That's interesting.
They totally ignored us, of course, yeah. Angel's writing some stuff. If you could take a look at that and see what she's referring to. And I think Samantha said, you got it, our kids mean everything,
Yeah,
and they
absolutely.
deserve to feel safe in this space.
And we want to make sure your daughter doesn't get harmed by anyone.
I'm hoping that Rob Shepherd can somehow be a light for people that are in darkness. I'm hoping that he can, because he came on the scene as a person advocating for individual rights when it came to vaccines and COVID and all this stuff. Yeah. And I'm hoping that he is going to push the mantle and push the agenda to a point where he gets more transparency and not a scripted, school committee
Well, he's not
meeting.
part of the inner circle.
Well, it is, and every one of those people on that board, for one reason or another, got involved because of a personal issue at some point, in some way.
Right. Yep.
Whether it be, I wanted to advocate for my child, who's a SPED child, and I want to make sure that SPED is getting everything they are entitled to. But what happens when that child graduates?
Right.
They're out the door as fast as they can and on to greener pastures, maybe even running.
I've done my 9 years.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
That's
maybe,
long enough. That's serving long enough.
and maybe even like thinking of running for selectman, which what you don't understand is you've already put your whole agenda out there. So you're going to have a harder time now that you have exposed yourself as who you are, as far as that's concerned. So.
And Angel says the comments to and on Paula Chauncey were horrifying.
Yes. By the way, people pushed back on us because we had wrong dates for how long she had been here. But when you don't have personal information from the person who you're talking about, then you have to rely on reliable sources. So, LinkedIn is a reliable source.
It should be.
And because you're putting information in that source as a person who's a member of LinkedIn, and if LinkedIn says you worked at a certain place for 5 years, you
But they
hope that
didn't-
they're telling you the truth.
They didn't look at the message.
No.
The information is like, hey, at the end of the day, Paula Chauncey resigned, right?
Yeah, and why? Why did she resign,
Right.
Right.
But they had to pick on, oh, you spelled her name wrong, you put this wrong, this
Haters
was
gonna
wrong,
hate.
this was wrong.
You
You
know-
spelled this word wrong. It's like, that's not what this is about. It's about to let everyone know she's gone.
Yeah.
You
Kevin
know?
Teller, you made a very good comment here saying that sped in Dracut is a joke. It's just pushed along. For how long have you had that thought, Kevin? I'll wait for your answer and we'll revisit it.
Angel will
because
chime in
an
on that, I'm
angel
sure.
should be able to know how long that thought is, and I'm going to tell you. I have a comment to make when I do hear that. What's that?
Yeah, there was a Lowell Sun article as well.
Oh, there's a Local Sun article now? Oh, good. Good. It looks like they took my picture.
Yes.
They took the picture off.
Well, you don't want the Lowell Sun doing too much work,
Yeah.
do you?
So anyways, yeah, that's good. Thank you, Nate. So Tom
8
DiGeronimo.
years, wow.
Oh,
Kevin-
so she did.
Kevin said
she did give a comment to the Lowell Sun.
Oh, but she wouldn't give it to us.
It says, although the move on the heels of some turbulent times in Dracut Athletic Department, particularly football program, her motive behind the move isn't about the job, it's about her family. She, quote, contrary to popular belief, my husband and I are actually moving to the Lakes region, she said, whose last day will be November 2nd. It's not
Getting out of
the
town.
big story I think everyone was thinking. It's easy to say it's all turmoil, but it wasn't that at all.
Of course, what else is she going to say?
Yep. So that was her reason for leaving.
Right.
And Kevin Tully has had his beliefs for 8 years now.
8 years.
That's
How
what he
long
said.
has Superintendent Stone been superintendent?
Wasn't he head of the sped department?
You knew exactly where I was going. So you took the head of the sped department, which wasn't very good to begin with, and you made him the
It's called
superintendent of
stumbling
schools.
upwards, like kind of like Biden getting on Air Force One.
Stumbling upwards.
Stumbling
very
upwards.
good, very good. So Tom Geronimo, quickly, what is he? We're running out of time. We've
Yeah.
only gotten through one thing. Go ahead.
So he is the
Pittsburgh?
yeah, and I think he's the vice president. He's really highly regarded. My contacts at the school say he's an awesome guy.
He's not vice principal, but I think
Yeah,
he's stepped
he's-
in as a
I forget what he is.
I think he
student-
was
student dean.
When I was
Student
there. I
dean,
think
yeah,
he
dean.
might have been an assistant vice principal.
Okay, whatever.
Maybe.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
he's well liked. Just say by the people that I know in the school.
By the way, Phil will be very happy that the next subject will be shorter because
Okay.
because when we
No,
get
but
to
the
him,
people
because
are
he's-
very
yeah.
people want to know this stuff because
Yes, absolutely. And we're happy to discuss it, and we'll take as long as we have to. We can always go to the next subject later. Go ahead, Phil. Tell us what you're on about. You're on your segment, too.
The MBTA multifamily zone, legislation that was passed about 2 years ago, I think, in the hopes of creating additional housing units, because there is certainly a housing shortage in Massachusetts. It's very difficult, and it drives the prices up. So the legislation was that any community that was serviced or is adjacent to an MBTA line, so Lowell is serviced by the MBTA because of the Gallagher Terminal. There's a stop there. There are actually, I think, six zones around eastern Massachusetts, the South Shore and up to the North Shore and stuff. Each of those were essentially legislated to create additional housing units, market rate housing units, through their zoning. And Dracut, being an adjacent community, needed to create an additional 10% of their housing stock, which would be for Dracut a little over 1,200 dwelling units.
Is that a state law? or-
That is through a state law. And so the law also requires that areas of the town be zoned to permit essentially a high density. The lowest amount would be 15 units per acre. To give you an idea, most of our town is one house per acre. Sometimes you can get into apartment complexes through our special permits for multifamily structures. That typically gets to 4 units per acre. So that would be an apartment complex. So like Sky Skyview, I
Skyline
think,
or-
Skyline. That would be following under those multifamily.
So
Dracut-
15 per-
So 15, that's correct. So it is dense. It's urban dense, absolutely. So 25 acres in the community need to be dedicated to that particular zone, contiguous. It doesn't have to be one lot. It has to be a contiguous 25-acre zone. And then other smaller zones can be created throughout the town. They have to be typically on, in our case, on a bus line or near a bus line within a certain walking distance.
Wow.
And those smaller zones can be no smaller than 5 acres. And again, it doesn't have to be a lot, but it needs to be contiguous 5 acres, so it could be several lots.
So Phil,
Nate, if you want to bring up, I think it's one of the Massachusetts maps, and it shows essentially Massachusetts, eastern Massachusetts, and the communities that are affected by this particular law.
Nate, there you go.
So these are the communities on the eastern, essentially eastern Massachusetts are affected. In our area, Pepperell and Dunstable are not affected because they're not adjacent to a community that is serviced by the MBTA.
Okay.
So Pepperell is buffered from Lowell by Tingsboro. And if you go further west, Dunstable, which is considered in our planning area, is also not adjacent to is only adjacent to essentially the abutter of an abutter, which doesn't classify.
Where did this come from, this legislation?
This was done during COVID, to be honest, and it started with Charlie Baker. So this map here shows the different designations of the service required. So the dark green are towns that are actually serviced by the MBTA. You can see Lowell in the upper mid portion there in the green, and you can almost trace out the commuter rail lines if you look at how these spokes are coming out. All around, Lowell is a brighter yellow, so we are an adjacent community. There's some duller colors in there, in the yellow. Those are smaller adjacent communities. And so their requirements are less than the 10% of the housing.
When do we have to comply by this?
So last November of 22, we had to supply, you can bring it back, Nate. We had to supply essentially our plan on how we were going to try to achieve this. And that had to be approved by the state. And that was done. So Allison Mnuchin, our community development director, had pulled together all the information that was needed. I believe discussed it with the Board of Selectmen, and that was submitted. And to the best of my knowledge, it has been approved. The next milestone is essentially getting the zones approved, either through an overlay or direct zoning bylaw, outlining where these communities are. So this is our existing zoning map. And the bluish color is an R3 zone. The white is a typical R1 zone, so that's 1 acre zoning, single family. The R3 zone, which is in the blue, is also 1 acre zoning, but permits multifamily via special permit through the planning board. So again, only single family residences by right. Then you have there's kind of a pinkish color towards the middle of the map. That's the golf course residential community. So that's all 2 acre zoning. And then the purplish color is industrial zone. So the majority of the town, of course, is single family residential. NEMCOG, Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, had done a preliminary study to outline some areas where they thought the overlay district would best be put. And I haven't fully verified these red circles with the NEMCOG plan, it's where I believe they were from the last time I saw it. So it is in Dracut Center, all the way down into the Loon Hill Broadway Road area. The Navy Yard, so Lakeview Ave as it comes in. There's also next to, on Lakeview Ave, next to the high school. So we have the Tennis Plaza area. I believe NEMCOG showed that that could be a potential location. Collinsville itself, so that epicenter, of course, is Lakeview Ave and Mammoth Road. But they also had what I feel is kind of an outlier where in East Dracut on Broadway Road towards Industrial Way, Salem Road area, because there is some commercial space out there and it could possibly service a fairly, I suppose that their thinking is that it could service a fairly dense population area, although it doesn't have any of the services that they really need, nor is it serviced by
the
them-
MBTA.
by a bus line.
Yeah.
Dracut Center, Collinsville, the Navy Yard, and the whole Lakeview Ave corridor are serviced by buses. So
But you said it had
you
to-
could bring that back.
You said
to
it
us
had to
down
be
here.
25 contiguous acres, though, right?
So the main area needs to be 25 contiguous acres.
So is there, in center of Dracut, is there a
Well,
place
there are 25 contiguous acres anywhere. And again, it
No,
doesn't
but
have to be
that
a
are
single lot.
buildable.
Well, so
that you can build
You can-
15 units
right,
per
and so
acre?
as long as it's not in the middle of Long Pond, you can build. You may have to, a developer may have to buy several house lots and, blocks upon blocks if you want, but it still makes it viable. So Dracut doesn't have to make sure that they're produced. They have to make sure that somebody could build.
They have to, yeah,
They
they have to allow.
it has to be reasonably cobbled together.
Right. So let me ask you this. How did it get the name of MBTA?
Because it's associated with the MBTA, the Massachusetts Bay Transit.
Did they propose it?
To be honest, I really don't know. I don't think so. I think it was used as the measuring stick of, how can we force this on half of Massachusetts?
mess
Well,
with
the
as many communities
MBTA
as we
services
can.
half of Massachusetts. So.
This
And
is-
to cut,
this
maybe
is-
to cut down the car usage.
This is someone,
Well, absolutely. I mean, the
it's not
density.
only the car issue. It's not only the car issue, so don't let that fool you.
Well, you know who was on this morning on John McDonough's program, Dawn Patrol?
Yeah.
Corey Belanger,
Yep.
telling people to avoid using their cars to take the T into Boston.
course.
And I commented and I said, well, did you get to McDonough's funeral home today by taking the city bus?
Yeah.
And the answer was no, he had driven.
Right.
So this whole thing is very, very much adverse to the mentality in Dracut, which is very car-centric. Anybody in Dracut knows that if you want to get anywhere in Dracut, you need to have a car.
Right.
So I, to some degree, also look at this as an opportunity for Dracut. We keep talking about, economic development. Well, I think this becomes an opportunity that if you can plan it right, if you essentially build this much residential, you will need to build more commercial space.
Right.
You'll have more stores, office buildings, and then
Because they can support the
it,
new,
get,
right?
it starts getting into specialities because you have that many people. Well, they want a particular thing. It won't just end up, all Dunkin' Donuts and
Coffee shops
and donut shops and
Diners.
pizzerias.
Bakeries.
But it's also, the reason it was put together is to push out the lower income type apartments. And
So none of-
affordability, and push that out of the, so it's not all condensed within the urban areas.
Well, certainly the urban areas like certainly Boston. Lowell it needs to comply with this. Cambridge needs to comply with this. But those areas are becoming very dense. And since you have this public transit that has already kind of put its fingers into other areas into Massachusetts, it's logical to believe that, okay, those urban areas follow, and then they need to grow it again.
How many train stations are there in Dracut?
There are none. It's the one in Lowell. So,
How
but
many-
we're
how many
adjacent.
bus stops are there in Dracut?
Well,
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying.
Well, in Dracut, they follow a flag system. So as long as you walk out onto the line and you see the bus coming and you raise your hand, they stop.
Oh, okay.
So there's no bus stops per se. But
Isn't there
I
a bus
was
stop on Lakeview?
again, it's all done by flag. They'll
No.
have signs.
But I think there's a little, actually, like a little place where
There
you
is
can sit. you know
there
what I
is
mean?
by High Pine Road.
But that's not the MBTA, that's...
That's the LRTA, Lowell
LRTA,
Transit.
yeah.
So, okay, so we're going to move on, all right?
If you want.
Yeah, we're going to move on because...
You know I can keep talking
know.
about this.
Richard, you...
In the sake of time, I am talking about Israel. I have a nice little video I want to show on a quick history of the background. So without further ado, let's play that video, please.
If Israel just allowed the Palestinians to have a state of their own, there would be peace in the Middle East, right? That's what you hear from UN ambassadors, European diplomats, and most college professors. But what if I told you that Israel has already offered the Palestinians a state of their own, and not just once, but on 5 separate occasions? Don't believe me? Let's review the record. After the breakup of the Ottoman Empire following World War I, Britain took control of most of the Middle East, including the area that constitutes modern Israel. 17 years later, in 1936, the Arabs rebelled against the British and against their Jewish neighbors. The British formed a task force, the Peel Commission, to study the cause of the rebellion. The commission concluded that the reason for the violence was that 2 peoples, Jews and Arabs, wanted to govern the same land. The answer, the Peel Commission concluded, would be to create 2 independent states, one for the Jews and one for the Arabs, a 2-state solution. The suggested split was heavily in favor of the Arabs. The British offered them 80% of the disputed territory, the Jews the remaining 20%. Yet, despite the tiny size of their proposed state, the Jews voted to accept this offer, but the Arabs rejected it and resumed their violent rebellion. Rejection number 1. 10 years later, in 1947, the British asked the United Nations to find a new solution to the continuing tensions. Like the Peel Commission, the UN decided that the best way to resolve the conflict was to divide the land. In November 1947, the UN voted to create 2 states. Again, the Jews accepted the offer, and again, the Arabs rejected it. Only this time, they did so by launching an all-out war. Rejection number 2. Jordan, Egypt, Iraq, Lebanon, and Syria joined the conflict. But they failed. Israel won the war and got on with the business of building a new nation. Most of the land set aside by the UN for an Arab state, the West Bank and East Jerusalem, became occupied territory. Occupied not by Israel, but by Jordan. 20 years later, in 1967, the Arabs, led this time by Egypt and joined by Syria and Jordan, once again sought to destroy the Jewish state. The 1967 conflict, known as the Six-Day War, ended in a stunning victory for Israel. Jerusalem and the West Bank, as well as the area known as the Gaza Strip, fell into Israel's hands. The government split over what to do with this new territory. Half wanted to return the West Bank to Jordan and Gaza to Egypt in exchange for peace. The other half wanted to give it to the region's Arabs, who had begun referring to themselves as the Palestinians, in the hope that they would ultimately build their own state there. Neither initiative got very far. A few months later, the Arab League met in Sudan and issued its infamous 3 no's. No peace with Israel, no recognition of Israel, no negotiations with Israel. Again, a 2-state solution was dismissed by the Arabs, making this rejection number 3. In 2000, Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak met at Camp David with Palestinian Liberation Organization Chairman Yasser Arafat to conclude a new 2-state plan. Barak offered Arafat a Palestinian state in all of Gaza and 94% of the West Bank, with East Jerusalem as its capital. But the Palestinian leader rejected the offer. In the words of U.S. President Bill Clinton, Arafat was here 14 days and said no to everything. Instead, the Palestinians launched a bloody wave of suicide bombings that killed over 1,000 Israelis and maimed thousands more on buses, in wedding halls, and in pizza parlors. Rejection number 4. In 2008, Israel tried yet again. Prime Minister Ehud Olmert went even further than Ehud Barak had, expanding the peace offer to include additional land to sweeten the deal. Like his predecessor, the new Palestinian leader, Mahmoud Abbas, turned the deal down. Rejection number 5. In between these last 2 Israeli offers, Israel unilaterally left Gaza, giving the Palestinians complete control there. Instead of developing this territory for the good of its citizens, the Palestinians turned Gaza into a terrorist base from which they have fired thousands of rockets into Israel. Each time Israel has agreed to a Palestinian state, the Palestinians have rejected the offer, often violently. So if you're interested in peace in the Middle East, maybe the answer is not to pressure Israel to make yet another offer of a state to the Palestinians. Maybe the answer is to pressure the Palestinians to finally accept the existence of a Jewish state. I'm David Bragg, Executive Director of the Maccabee Task Force for Prager University.
To subscribe to our YouTube channel, click here. To help.
That obviously is a very good description of what's gone on over there.
Absolutely, John. I wish they would show that in every college, because do you know what we're seeing in our universities? We're seeing kids. I drive by UMass Lowell every day to go home from work, and every day there's a protest with Palestinian flags. And this particular photograph is not from Lowell, but it does a good job of summing up the rationale of college kids. So if you can put up the photograph. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at this. Let's analyze this for a minute. Queers for Palestine. I did a little research during that video, and according to Equal Dex, a website that looks at how different countries have human rights and things like that, out of the 7 regions in the world for the acceptance of homosexuality, 95% of people rank Palestine as number 7, the bottom of the list. You look at other things. In fact, Israel legalized homosexual marriage in 1951.
Wow. Way ahead of everybody.
Way ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
Palestine's still railing against it. In 2022, somebody was beheaded for being homosexual. So how...
In a Palestinian state.
In Palestine.
Right.
So how on earth can you sit there? You know what it is, John? The kids today, my peers, are so rebellious for what the man says that they will go, if you look and say this little green screen is green, they'll say it's blue. They don't really care about the cause. They are going to do the opposite of whatever the United States policy is. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
The hypocrisy.
It's a sad state of affairs when the whole view of the Jewish state has flipped even in the United States.
I have never seen so much anti-Semitism in this country. I have a lot of Jewish friends right now who are afraid to say that they're Jewish.
Yeah. You when you have open borders and when you change your whole view from being strong against these people, that you now become what is the word I'm looking for? Barack Obama is appeasement. When you try to appease people, this is when it gets out of hand.
Well, we tried that with Hitler and look what happened.
Right.
To me, the biggest hypocrisy is, as you saw in 1947, the UN is the one who kind of came up with one of the ideas of giving the 2 states. Yet I heard the other day, supposedly, that the president of the UN released a statement kind of saying that both sides need to calm down and figure it out.
Yeah, I have a couple of videos, but we're not going to have time to put them up. The UN General Secretary made a statement that there's 2 sides to this, and that Israel, that this thing didn't happen in a vacuum, that Israel has been, for 56 years, been oppressors of Palestine.
Funny, because the UN is the same organization that instituted and supported Israel.
Well, it's because he doesn't even realize what he's there for.
No.
I personally, I think it's time to throw the UN right out of here.
Correct.
Get rid
Absolutely.
of them. That we don't need them anymore.
The UN is uninvolved in peace.
I mean, it was such an abhorrent statement by the UN Secretary General that it caused the UN ambassador from Israel to go off the deep end and call for his resignation. Because he even said, "What world do you live in, sir, that you can make that kind of a statement?" Same way with the poster of Queers for Palestine and Palestinians. Listen,
what planet do you live on?
Go be a queer in Palestine, see how long you live.
Right, exactly. That was my whole point. They throw people off roofs.
Yeah.
Off
You know what the
buildings.
sentence is in Palestine for being homosexual?
Beheaded.
10 years in prison.
10
if
years.
you don't get beheaded before you get to the prison.
Exactly. It's beyond my belief of how it's flipped. It used to be like 70% of the United States believed that, that the Jews
Zionism.
but now it's completely flipped around. Where it's
Well, and I
the way
love how
around.
those of us who support Donald Trump, we're the Nazis.
Yeah.
When you have these people who are railing against the Jews.
Yeah.
Isn't that so interesting?
Yeah,
Isn't that
it's-
so
it's-
interesting?
It's sad. It's quite sad. So we're going to get into more of this on our next show.
Yes.
So prepare for that for the next show, because already the 6-day war has been outlasted by, I think today is the 18th day, so 3 times.
Yeah.
Right?
And we'll have some pictures from the protest for the next one.
Yeah. Okay, and we'll have pictures for the protest. But I wanted to get back a little bit back to Dracut for just a minute, and then we're going to go on to some national stuff, because a very disturbing thing happened recently, and we're not going to have a lot of time to get into it tonight, but I'm going to get into it in our next show. Everyone in the town is railing about economic development and railing about how we need to expand revenue, tax revenue, and everything else. Well, there's a little known event that happened over the summer, and I didn't really find out about it until recently when somebody brought it to light, because it's next to impossible for us to be the police of all the issues that are going on in Dracut. But when you bring it to our attention, we research it and we find out. So it got brought to my attention that a potential windfall of tax revenue to come into Dracut, and I'm sure members of the school committee who are watching don't even know this, and members of the Board of Selectmen may not even know this, but there is a 147,000 square foot warehouse being proposed on Broadway Road and the old Exxon property. And that property is next to useless for most stuff in the town. And there's a little bit of a pushback by the neighborhood, and I understand that NIMBY thinking, but you've got to get beyond that, and we've got to do everything we can. This is a potentially $350,000 plus in tax revenue, new revenue to the town per year, based on what this project is going to bring. And one member of that planning board completely put it on hold because they're ready to vote. They've got all the information. They're ready to vote up or down for this project. And this one member wants to check with the state to make sure that they're going to allow us to trucks to enter in and out of Broadway Road, where more trucks are already there.
Right, you have Severance, you have Old
Severance, you have
Dominion.
Tupin, you have a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of things there. But one member, former DPW director Mike Buxton, who, believe me, I believe has seen his day. He shouldn't even be on a board anymore. And the bottom line is he's the appointment of the manager who's advocating for more revenue, and he holds up this project. Phil would have something to say about that in terms of how easy it is to get projects through in Dracut.
As you know, I've had a number of times I've gone in front of the planning board to advocate for a project, to have each one shot down. I can say, for instance, we went in front of the planning board for an informal hearing to get what they were thinking about. This is what we're thinking for the Otto Butler.
Yep.
On Pleasant Street. We were looking at doing a bakery and a coffee, an upscale coffee shop. I believe the owner wanted to have like a fishmonger, so a real neighborhood sort of shopping area. He was thinking about putting some residential uses above it, and the planning board was, nope, we think it does fine as an auto repair shop.
Yeah, wonderful. And that's because one member of the Board of Selectmen whispered in somebody's ear on that
it could
board,
very
and we
well
know
be.
he's got several friends on that board.
Could very well be.
You know, and killed it because.
So it's unfortunate. I mean, I've gone in front of the board on a couple of occasions. One was Bridgewood Plaza, that many people are using the basement area, which is supposed to be storage only. A lot of people are using it for their businesses and actually having occupiable space underneath. And I worked with the building commissioner to say, hey, if we do this and this and this, and I have a client that wants to use the basement area for a yoga shop, a yoga studio. What if we brought this in front of the board, and these are the parameters. And then I said to the building commissioner, you could use this as a template and go to every single one of those businesses there and say, we can make you legitimate. You just have to go through these steps.
Yeah.
And the planning board said no.
Nope. But this is what you're faced with in Dracut. I mean, you got people screaming about raising revenues, but you know what they want to do? They want to raise it on the backs of the people who live here. They don't want to expand. They don't really want to have economic development. Let's just lay that on the table. They don't really want economic development. They want a pizza shop or a hair salon or a nail shop. God forbid a massage parlor comes into Dracut. You're gonna have outrage,
They
right?
want another yogurt.
So
a yogurt.
So I kind of have the feeling that if an applicant takes some thought and consideration, well, they don't want to deal with it because,
No.
oh God, please don't make us think.
Yeah, exactly.
But if it's simple like a coffee shop, okay, you can go in. Pizza shop, okay, you
it's
can
a
go
sad
in.
state of
It
affairs.
is, it is.
Because when you're talking about the school committee arguing with the board of selectmen and the manager over realigning all of the chargebacks, and then you're yelling, we need more revenue. But so where the revenue going to come from? My pocket is empty right now. And most people who are on fixed income, their pockets are empty. We are beyond stretched right now. And I hope to get Rich Cowan to weigh in for our next show, because get ready, folks, because this winter your electric bill is going up by 51%, because the consortium that we're in,
The
aggregation is going up. It's going up because the contract
expires.
3-year expires, and it's going up 51%.
We're going to have to sell what's happening
so that-
Dracut blankets.
So that's the generation of power is going
Right.
up by 51%.
Right.
That doesn't, I don't think it really speaks
delivery
to
charge.
I don't think it speaks to delivery.
No, it doesn't speak to
But the-
delivery. So
but
now
the
your portion
delivery
of your
could
bill that
probably go
says
up.
generation.
So a quarter of your
If it's
bill,
$100,
it'll be a
it's going to
quarter.
be $151 come December. Get
Well,
ready,
it
folks.
should be, because the delivery is about 40% of your total bill, so
Right.
it'll be about
but
30% of your
I
bill.
don't,
So
I
if you're
don't know
paying
if this-
100, you're going to go 130.
I don't know if the aggregation has control over the delivery portion.
Right, correct.
Which is probably, which ultimately is
Will
going to be
probably
going
go
up
up
to,
into,
is going
yeah.
up to.
Yeah.
Well, we've come to the end of the show. We're going to get more
We
on.
forgot about the $750,000 mistake. But
Yeah, we'll get into that again
And
next show.
tomorrow's a
You
pretty
prepare
big
for
day,
that.
John.
You do some research. What's tomorrow?
Right here at the studio.
Well, yes, tomorrow we have our annual meeting.
Yes.
Yeah, you had to bring that up.
We have a meeting. We're going to have great food. Come on
Great
down.
food, but don't invite the public now. We only
Well, you do need to be a member to attend.
you have to be a member to come, to come. So if you haven't already told people you're coming, you can come, but there may not be enough food, but because we're trying to order just enough for what comes. But at any rate, it's the end of the show. All I want to say in closing about some of this Israeli stuff that's going on, if you are a person who supports Hamas, then you are a terrorist. Mm-hmm. If you support the killing of babies and you support Hamas, who kills grandmothers, pregnant women by slicing their bellies open and disemboweling them before the child is birthed, you are a terrorist. If you are quiet on this subject, you are part of the problem. Gordy?
Well, folks, thanks for watching tonight. We had some callers coming in tonight. That's what we like. We like to discuss some of these issues that we bring up, and we're always going to keep you in the loop so you know what's going on. And when it's Wednesday and it's 6:30, it's What's Happening Dracut. Good night, Dracut.
Good
Good night, everybody.